Hello, my name is Linda. I love to papercraft, art journal, and design printables. Today I wanted to show you my collage art journal. It's a little flip book that I turn to when I'm in a slump or just not totally inspired to do anything specific in terms of in my journal. I think it's a good idea to turn to collage when you're sort of in a creative funk or maybe just super tired or something, because it's something that's really easy to do. I mean, you certainly can put a lot of thought into collage artwork, but I'm talking about the approach that little kids take to it. You're just cutting out things that you like, and you don't plan anything out, and you're just gluing paper. So here's just a very quick flip through the pages that I've already created in this journal. So I'm finding myself a blank page that I can work on. But since I don't have an idea of what I want to create, I'm just going to get ephemera or pieces of paper or magazine, things that I have sort of stacked up, and just go at it in terms of cutting out pieces that I like or that strike something in me. So a lot of the times I use magazines, but I also have a lot of printables that are often my own designs or even things that I've printed out because I saw it online and I downloaded it and would like to use it at some point. So I'm just gonna go through and cut them out. So maybe cut out the main focal image or a specific part that strikes me as something that I might use, just to get rid of some of the bulk so I'm not keeping always lots and lots of paper. Like sometimes you'll rip something out of a magazine, or you'll keep like a catalog or a menu or an advertisement, like everyday life ephemera, but really you just wanted one little part of it, or one little phrase, or one little image or illustration. So it's a good practice just to go through and cut out all of the little different pieces that you actually think you might use, rather than keeping the whole sheet, because it can definitely build up. If you're a paper hoarder like me, it can get overwhelming. So sometimes it's good just to go through and do this. And you can also flip through your favorite magazines or books that you use for art journaling, stacks of ephemera or catalogs. The idea is to flip through and just pick whatever catches your eye. Like there's no plan to create a page or anything. Just simply see what makes you stop. And you can definitely do this while you're watching TV or doing something else with other people. It's a way just to get your hands moving and starting to do something, even though you don't have any kind of specific spark or inspiration or project in mind. So I'm paging through old issues of Flow magazine and cutting out snippets that are interesting to me. Sometimes they're words, sometimes they're images, or just colors together, or illustrations. Different things will resonate with different people, so it's definitely a very personal choice. And try not to think too much about what you're going to do with the pieces or if they go together. You're just flipping through and cutting out whatever you fancy. And sometimes it can be a cropping out of a section or an image. It doesn't have to be like a recognizable image necessarily, or maybe there is a photo and you only like a certain part. So literally do that cropping, like cut out just the part that you like. You definitely should follow your gut, and importantly, just get your hands moving. So you're giving yourself sort of a mental break. There's no plan, there's no rhyme or reason to the process. You're just going through and cutting pieces out that might eventually be worked into a collage piece, or they might not. You sort of don't know, but you're definitely going through and taking notice of just what stands out to you. There are a lot of pages that I definitely didn't have anything strike me at all, so I didn't cut anything out at all. But sometimes you can still keep these magazines, because when you're in a different mood, there might be something else that you see or something that strikes you. So depending on like how many magazines or pieces of ephemera you have, consider going through like multiple times or different sessions if you're in like a different mood. I often cut out illustrations and line drawings, but I also cut out textures and just colors or patterns that I see, and definitely I like a lot of words as well. They make really good embellishments or like title pieces when there's a really interesting combination of words. It's sort of like an exploration to just let your creative mind warm up, taking all the bits and pieces of what you're seeing and just sort of letting everything out in the open to see if it does spark something for you. And you might like see something that sparks you into creating a page because there's something that you really, really like. I'm definitely drawn to all kinds of images and all kinds of words, and I crop them as I might see fit so that I'm not like just ripping out a whole page. You are the curator, so you can do whatever you want and take whatever little bits and pieces that you want for your collage. It might not have been something specific that the person, like whoever the illustrator might have planned it out. You might be cropping it very differently, but that's totally okay. It's up to you. And you can see there that I cut out just sort of like a patterned piece because I just like the colored dots that are there, and that was interesting to me. So I snipped out just a little piece. I didn't want the rest of the words, so that's why I just took that one little piece out rather than the whole page. And as I'm going through, I don't know what I'm going to create in terms of if I'm even going to create a final collage out of these pieces, and certainly I'm cutting a lot of different things out, so I'm not going to use it all, but I can sort of just keep it in my stash and have a little stack. It's definitely a lot more accessible to have the pieces already cut out for me than to have, say, a stack of like 50 magazines that I have to look through. So this is sort of a fun thing to do just in preparation for a different session in terms of when you're going to do something creative. And I find this to be something really easy to do. Even when you're not inspired, even if you're tired, even if you don't feel like it, it's pretty easy to just pick up scissors, flip through a bunch of pages, and see if you want to cut anything out. It's like the simplest entry point into getting your hands moving and leaving yourself open this to some type of creative inspiration. So as I was flipping through, I definitely found this image of like a 50s looking ladies. It definitely makes me think of the Reset Girl who's here on YouTube and like the style that she likes. So I cut out that image. When I was cutting out this particular image, I didn't know that I was going to use it necessarily. Not when I was cutting it out, but later on I get drawn to it again and I start using it for my page. So it all started here, but when I was actually cutting it out, I didn't know that I was going to use that for my collage today. Like I said, you just have to let yourself go and see what happens. So I know you might be thinking, if you aren't inspired, isn't it better to just not do anything? Like let yourself rest so you can just act when the inspiration strikes. And I totally understand that. It seems like a good idea, but from years of experience, I have learned that if I just let myself wait around for inspiration to strike, it very rarely happens in that way. Like I don't wake up in the middle of the night or just have a spark in the middle of the day to be like, now I need to go create this one thing. Rather, really good ideas, oftentimes it comes up while I'm in the process of doing, of creating, of moving my hands. Then other ideas will come up. Sometimes I sit down to create something I have in my mind, maybe something I've even planned out, but then I end up creating something else entirely. And it's still like a pretty mysterious process to me, like how creativity works, how our minds work, the associations that we make, and it's all very personal and individual. But all I do know is that you have to keep the creative habit going. You have to keep making and creating. It's the only way, because otherwise it's just all inspiration and dreaming and thinking and planning, but you're not actually going to have a lot of results. And I know for me, it's a bad feeling in the end. I can plan my heart's content and think I'm going to do this big project, but if I don't actually get into it, then I don't get that satisfaction. I actually get a lot of anxiety from thinking too much. When I just get myself into action, it just feels better. And sometimes what I'm making doesn't end up being anything, or I might abandon it, but it's because maybe a better idea came along, and so I start working on that. If I just start making things, it's just always better off in the end. So just a little tip, when you're cutting out things from a magazine, sometimes you want to use an X-Acto knife to cut the part that is closest to the binding so that you get a straight edge and you get as much of the image as possible. I was very attracted to this sort of pattern paper floral imagery and the color, so I wanted to get as much as possible because it's only a tiny little strip on the page, so that's why I didn't rip it out. Unless you like that ragged edge, maybe you will rip it out on purpose. In my case, I decided to cut out specific pieces that have more of the pattern or as much of the pattern on it as possible. So after cutting out those pieces, and there were some words included as well, I went back to those ladies and started to put a page together because I just really liked how all of those colors from the different pieces look like they belong together. And these are actually totally separate pieces. They're not from the same part of the magazine or the same magazine even. And it's just something that I see in them that makes it seem like they go together to my eye. And that's sort of like the fun thing about collage. When you just start cutting out lots of pieces and you get them all together on your table, then you see something, it sparks some type of inspiration, and so you start putting them together. So I get the pieces that I've cut out and try to size them and place them on my page, and it's a very, very simple collage. I'm really just using a couple pieces, and my journal page is pretty small, so there's not that much you can do with it, but that is actually on purpose because it means that I will be able to create something quickly without fussing too much and can say that I've made my page. And I usually use this journal specifically for collage when I want to just do something quick, when I want to use my hands and create something even though I might not have a lot of time or I don't have a lot of inspiration. I also like to use this to put different imagery together to make sort of like a color palette, like an inspiration. So here I'm just gluing down all the pieces together, and it's the image of the ladies with those colorful dots that I had cut out from a different page. They just look like they would go together, and the statement here really sounded like something that lady in the foreground would say. It says, "What do you think of me?" And it just seems like something that she's actually saying, even though these are pieces that came from completely different pages of the magazine. And that's my page, just a little something for the day to keep up my creative habit. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more, subscribe to my channel. I post videos about journaling, printables, and all things paper crafting.